You're listening to episode 90 of On Purpose with Alex Beadon. This week, I speak to Nikki Elledge Brown. She is a speaker, teacher, coach, consultant, and biz mentor who quickly built a name for herself and a highly profitable business for herself by helping service-based business owners communicate with clarity and confidence through her first online program, A Course About Copy. In 2017, Nikki launched the Naptime Empires podcast to help family-focused entrepreneurs feel less alone in the journey, shifting out of overwhelm and hiding in the bathroom into inspired yet imperfect action. As we roll into 2020, Nikki's renewed focus is on helping high-achieving 7- and 8-figure women avoid burnout so that they can lead for the long haul and enjoy the success they've created without sucking all the fun out of their businesses and or sacrificing their health, wealth, and relationships along the way. In this episode, we talk all about her journey, and it is a wild one. She shares how she made $21,000 in the first 2 months of her business, how she made $50,000 in the launch of her first online course. She teaches us about the importance of inspired action, wealth building, divulges the truth about mom guilt, and gives us a glimpse into what every single high output entrepreneur needs to invest in to make sure they stay true to their values and avoid burnout. This is a beautiful episode to listen to if you're a little bit overwhelmed by the strategic side of things and you want to lean more into total love and acceptance of yourself as an entrepreneur wherever you are on your journey. This is On Purpose, episode 90. Do you ever feel like you're trying to balance it all? Nourishing your health while growing your business and living a life well lived? And no matter how hard you try, sometimes you slip from purpose-driven into autopilot. Take a deep breath, relax, and let's get you back to where you belong, on purpose. Nikki, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Same. Long time coming.
I know. I'm so excited. So for everyone who's listening, Nikki and I are actually friends in real life. We were in a mastermind together back in 2014?
I mean, yeah.
Maybe even earlier.
2013 even, where we were just piecing together. Like, I was like, hey, because you and the other buddies had reached out, and I'm like, I bet they would really enjoy connecting with each other. Let's group date like The Bachelorette.
Yes, you put us all together. I remember. And then a few years, I think 2017, 4 or 5 years later, we end up again in another mastermind, but this time, we're all paying to be there.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to have the skin in the game to show up.
So I'm going to ask you the same question that I ask all of my guests when we first get started. What is the most nourishing part of having your own business?
Perfect segue. I bet a lot of people say freedom and flexibility, and 100%. I love that, but I'm going to say the relationships. And when I say that, it's like in my head, I see it as REAL. Relationships have been 100% the most nourishing piece for me. The friendships that I've made over the last almost 7 years are absolutely priceless to me. And if I had to go get a job, I would do that. If it was like a job, the flexibility or these relationships, I would choose the relationships.
And
thankfully, I don't have to choose.
What do you think it is about the relationships that you make as a business owner that's different from maybe the relationships that you were making before?
It's a miracle to me that out of the billions of humans on the planet that we can find each other. There's plenty of drawbacks and benefits to the internet, but to me, it's so cool to be able to have friendships, and that doesn't even seem like a strong enough word, with people who I can completely 100% bring my whole self to the table and likewise hold that space for them to be. So not just in business relationship, but we help each other be better moms and partners and daughters and sisters. So I would have never met them, without the power of the internet, and also without going into the business world and dipping into this space that I didn't even know existed 7 years ago.
So this is going into a direction that was totally unexpected for me, but I really want to dive deeper into this because I've been thinking a lot lately about my friendships and my relationships and really looking back at my childhood. So I used to move around once every year and a half, we would move country as a child. And looking back at it now, I think I developed this mindset or this belief that friends were replaceable and that I didn't really need friends in my life. And now as an adult, I'm starting to like reflect. Obviously, that wasn't like a conscious thing that I was telling myself. It was more of like probably a self-protective mechanism to help it just be easier to move country, because it's heartbreaking. Like you have to leave all your friends, especially as a child and as a
Yes.
teenager. And like, it's so fundamental. And so I think now as an adult, I'm looking at my own relationships and how I feel about friendships and really trying to be conscious about the energy that I bring into the relationships in my life. And so I would love for you to share with me, how do you go about building these relationships with people? Like how, it sounds like a weird question, but like, how do you be a good friend and how do you build those relationships? What does that look like for you?
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I love that we are talking about this because it's so important, especially because, again, bennies and drawbacks of the internet. It's like we're more connected than ever, but we can also feel more isolated than ever if those aren't REAL relationships.
Yeah.
Interesting, too, to have this conversation at this point, because if we were having this conversation this time last year when y'all originally invited me, I've had a lot of shifted perceptions and perspectives on
Mm-hmm.
it, too, because you developed that resilience of having, when you were moving and you were finding new friends and friends are replaceable. In a sense, that's actually true. Like nothing's ever missing. It's just transforming, which is science and spirit as well. Like it's not missing. So you were having those friends, and then those things that you were getting from those friends just transformed into new friends, you know?
Yeah.
When we get super clingy to be like, no, it has to be this friend, just like it has to be this launch outcome or whatever, that's never good, you know, because then we feel like we have to have this or else. And it's fear-based connection rather
Mm-hmm.
than true unconditional presence and appreciation for the form that we currently have it in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a deeper, nerdier conversation that I also love to have. But on a practical level, the way that I've found these friends is by showing up. Like all
Mm-hmm.
of y'all, for example, with our mastermind that we were patching together and creating, it was like each of y'all reached out to me because you saw me doing my thing and you were like, oh, she's cool, I bet we'd get along. And
Mm-hmm.
then reaching out to me and reaching out to me. And likewise, being on people's podcasts, being interviewed, like I had an unusual start to my business and things took off really fast, but it was because I was putting myself out there. And so it's kind of like almost even now as I think about getting back into business, because I took my foot off the gas a few years ago after my second little one was born. And I'm like, okay, I could do social media. I don't want to be on it all the time. Shout out for your project storyline because I think it's brilliant in all the ways. So if and when I'm like, okay, I'm really going to use my Instagram for business now because it totally does look like a personal profile. I saw your post yesterday. Like it totally does, but I've been totally fine with that because I haven't been offering anything. But it's almost more as like a signal, like a bat signal, if you will, to the
Mm-hmm.
friends and the clients. Because I don't think that the clients I'm actually really looking to serve right now are going to be spending that much time on social
No.
media. But when they're checking me out, they want to see how I'm serving the people that are listening to me. And so it's really like you just kind of see other people who are like doing their thing and serving this audience. And you're like, oh, wow. And you like respect that they're peers in the industry or whatever it is. So you have to put yourself out there literally, figuratively, digitally, physically, in all the ways. And rather than feeling like you have to tag people or like put on a show, likewise with clients, it's the same thing with clients. Like you have to turn on the open for business sign and be the lighthouse, as they say.
Yeah. What's so funny is, so my boyfriend, Nick, he's like the biggest extrovert that ever existed. And he has taught me
Mm.
so much about what it means to be a good friend. And what inspires me the most about him is like, he's always reaching out and like putting himself out there and trying to get together and getting together for no specific reason, just because you want to spend time together and being in the comfort of like, it's safe to just spend time together and not necessarily have like an outcome for every single thing that you do. Do you know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah. Yes, completely. Just the presence is the
Yeah.
gift
Yeah.
sometimes. And like whenever I used to live in Hawaii, and now I live within 10 minutes of my parents and all three of my sisters. But back in the day, whenever we'd come and visit just for a little bit, I'm like, I just want to breathe your air. Like we don't have to
Hmm.
talk. You can be looking through your magazine and I can be doing whatever, but I just want to be in your space. And that's
Hmm.
been one of the biggest benefits of a group of friends and I that have been prioritizing in-person time over the last couple of years. I mean, a couple of them travel so much and they're so busy all the time that it is just their chance to breathe. And for us, we're just like, we just want to be near you. We just want to be here.
Yeah.
Whatever time we get is great and appreciated. But the other piece of it too, so I would say putting yourself out there for your business, but then also just encouraging people. Be the friend that you wish to see in your Voxer thread. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
reaching out and checking on people and encouraging people. Because think about how much content you go through and scroll through in a given day, but you're not actually even interacting with it. And so you start to notice the people who are constantly liking or replying or in your DMs or whatever. You start to notice those people, so that it, like, don't underestimate the power of that, because people appreciate interaction and engagement. Like, we know that we're not just doing it for the likes, but we do want to know that it is not just like going out into a vacuum, that we are reaching and connecting with people. So there's also that aspect of it, replying and appreciating what other people are doing.
And I like what you said about being the friends that you want to have as well. Like,
yeah,
I've even been going so far as like trying to schedule in, like, okay, like I literally have it as a reminder in my phone. I'm like, every few weeks, follow up with this person and just be like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah. And no expectations, like no expectations.
Exactly.
Like I said, when you are like, I have to be friends with this person, it gets weird.
Yeah.
Just like if you're like, I have to get this sale, it gets weird. If we feel like you need us, that's not attractive. But if it's like a bonus and we have mutually like beneficial connection here, then that's great. So it's like no pressure to respond. I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing, or say that I saw this video or this email, it was amazing. And there's like no pressure and no expectations. It's just bonus. And again, this transcends all relationships, whether it's your romantic relationship, your friendships, your client relationships. It's like, we're just here to benefit each other, and there's no pressure here.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful. Like when you really think about the fact, this is maybe going a little out there, but you and I and everyone listening to this podcast, we are all alive on this planet at the exact same moment, which is so rare in and of itself. Like, we are the only ones who know what it's like to be alive at this time and who are experiencing this. And so I think we all have so much more in common than we know. And
for real. Yes.
Yeah.
Again, it's like super woo, but it's also super practical. Like, it's just fact that we're holding up mirrors for each other to be like, oh, you don't like this about me, you don't like it about you, in your own form as well. Like, thank you for that. Even with my kids, like the lessons that I'm learning from them, I'm learning to love them. And by doing that, I'm learning to love my actual self. It's deepish.
That's beautiful. Okay. So earlier you mentioned that you had an unusual start to your business.
Mm-hmm.
I witnessed the whole thing. So
I saw the whole thing.
Nikki and I were both in B school, and that's how I was first introduced to Nikki. And your business just skyrocketed. So I would love for you to tell us that story.
Yeah. So it was the beginning of 2013. I chose faith as my word of the year because my husband he's in the Navy, and he was about to be going to Connecticut, and we were in Hawaii, and our oldest was a toddler at the time. And I was like, okay, I want to get rooted in what's not going to change, which is interesting because my faith has actually shifted a lot over the last several years. But in my 2013 perception, I was like, I'm going to get rooted and anchored in what's not going to change, because if my husband's going to be across the world and I have a toddler and 2 part-time jobs, like, things could get chaotic, and I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel really grounded. So I started waking up before them for the first time in Bryson's whole life, like waking up before it was to the squeal on the baby monitor, and having some quiet time to myself. And that's when I noticed, like, I was just journaling. And that's when I started to notice what I call the divine breadcrumbs, the divine, like, sparkly little twinkle emoji breadcrumbs that were always leading me and pointing me to this path of communicating, connection, and storytelling. Because, like, my background, I have bachelor's and master's degrees in communication studies. I love teaching. I love facilitating light bulb moments. And then all of these little accolades and opportunities that have been all along the path. I was like, that's not a coincidence, basically. Like, that's all pointing me to something. So I was like, I want to share. I don't know if I had been writing a blog for fun, and I was like, is it, a business? Is it a book? Is it a different blog? Now I know it's all of those things. So then I fell into the world of online marketing and online business and personal brands and all of that. And then whenever we were in that program, I realized, oh gosh, a lot of people, if I was like, I'm going to help people with communication, because that's my thing. It's literally what I was teaching at the college level for 7 years before I started my business. I realized if I'm going to help people with communication, or entrepreneurs specifically, because they'd be able to pay me for help with communication, I can help anybody with it, but who's going to actually pay me so it can be business? And I just realized in that group, oh dear, a lot of people are struggling with actually writing like they speak. And so that's what I was offering. I actually did some free sessions first, and then from there I got testimonials. And when we say unusual, it was like from 0 to over $21,000 in revenue by the end of my 2nd month of business, because I had so many people sign up and take me up on these 1-hour sessions that I hosted throughout the summer of 2013. So that was the start.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was.
And like, especially to just get started, like most people, when they get started, there's like struggle and they have to like really figure things out. But you just kind of came out there and you were like, yo, this is what I'm offering. And in 2 months, you made $21,000. You were just offering one-on-one sessions, right?
Yeah, it was the first deal was like, and I was like, I'm going to offer something. And I didn't even know, like, I remember specifically sitting at my parents' kitchen table and messaging my sister, be like, what should I offer? I didn't even know. I just said I was going to offer something. And there was just a little opt-in page and people were opting in specifically to hear what I was going to offer. This is why I'm saying it's unusual. That is not normal for people to be opting in so you can sell them something. Like that was weird. But it was a perfect storm because people were enjoying my written communication and I had a video on the internet. Like besides my Pearl Harbor Park Ranger thing, I don't think I had a video on the internet. So they were literally just hearing me before they were hiring me. And that's the power of great, clear, sincere copy because it helps them get to know you just from the words. And so, yeah, it was like originally $199 for a 1 hour session. And then I was saying I would do a bonus 30-minute follow-up session, but then 70 something people took me up on it. I was like, oh poop, I can't do that many bonus sessions. And I was like, I will honor it if y'all want it. But another idea is if you don't want to do the follow-up 30-minute session, you can just, after I've done the 1 hour and spent the 1 hour with you, then you can send me like up to 2 pages and I will style it up for you once I've gotten to know you and who you are and what you sound like and blah, blah, blah. Because I was never a copywriter. I was never writing for people. I would write with them and basically hold up the mirror to reflect what they actually sound like. And then it's like when you take away this is for an about page and it's just like, Alex, tell me about who you serve, what they need, what they're looking for, why you love to serve them. And then I share that back to you. You're like, oh my gosh, that's so good. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know you said it. And so that was my favorite part. Ultimately, it was all about permission to be yourself and to write like you actually speak on purpose.
That is so beautiful. And I just love that 70 something people bought. That must have been chaotic.
It was nuts. I mean, like I have the PayPal screenshots because I still, like if I hadn't been there, I think I would have been like, what are you talking about? But it happened. It happened. I worked with over 160 different people in the first 8 months. And then I created the course out of it a few months after that, right before the end of my first year.
So the course is called A Course About Copy.
Yeah.
It's still available, isn't it?
It is, but I don't actually know how much longer. This is a big question mark that I have because moving forward, it's not, I mean, I haven't actively promoted it in years actually. So it's still there. And even when I've had it like down and off the internet, there's usually at least one person a month who will email me reverse email marketing to be like, hey, can I join? Do you have a link? And I did like a number of podcast episodes like 4 years ago that are big name podcasts that still send people to it and everything. So it's there and it serves people, but it's not actively where my attention is. So I think I might make it like a bonus to whatever else I'm offering eventually. So if you are interested, you got to check it out soon because I don't know how much longer I'm going to have it out there for.
We'll leave the link in the show notes and when it's expired, it's expired. So guys, go and check it out as soon as you can before she takes it down. But what's so interesting to me about your story is that the reason why you were so successful, like you said, is because of your clear communication and because of the words you were using and because of your copy. Which is then what you went on to sell. You created this course about copy. Tell me about what the journey was like with the course.
Yeah. So I'll flash forward and then rewind a little bit. But, we talk about the unusual start and how it's just like, bam, straight out of the gate. Like I was thinking maybe I'll make $20,000 in my first year. Because at the time I was going to, give 10% to fund a well. That was about $2,200 to this organization. And I thought, oh, that'd be so cool if I could do that in the first year. So when it happened in this like month 2, I was like, whoa, oh my goodness. Cause that's what I had been making in a year. I had been making $25,000 to $35,000 at the various jobs that I had worked in Hawaii for the few years before that. I call it paychecks of the heart. Yeah. So I was like, and of course it's not, I mean, actually it was highly profitable because I didn't have many expenses at all. But of course, when someone says revenue, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're taking home.
Yeah.
But we were saving everything that I made, which is another huge milestone I want everyone to hear is that to whatever degree that you can in this moment, I just want to encourage you to save something, some portion, some percent, ideally an ever growing percent of what you're making. So it's hugely privileged that my husband was able to support us financially. And we literally saved everything that I made because in this present time, when I've been taking this break and took my foot off the gas for the last few years, we've been more than fine because we had built, even before I started my business, like we had built and some flexibility and that cushion, right? Like your net income can become a safety net that can carry you through if it's a life emergency or a huge transition like we've had or whatever. So that's just a sidebar. But with the course and the straight line thing, I was going to say later on, I created my own squiggle. You know, that cartoon, like where it's the graph of like, this is what you think entrepreneurship is going to be like. And then this is what it's actually like. And it's all the squiggles. I created my own. So don't worry. I had my struggle season, everyone, before you roll your eyeballs and discount everything that I'm going to say. I created my own struggle season over the last few years so I could really embody it and know what that feels like rather than intellectualizing it. But I was doing all the one-on-one stuff, head down, booty up, like just doing the thing. And then I knew that I was not going to have so much time and we were going to be traveling more because my husband was going to be gone and we would want to go visit him, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I'm going to create a course so that this is scalable because I knew that I was saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And also from a morbid perspective, I was like, what if I die? And then like, this is all for nothing. And it's like, good luck to my husband and kid. And they have nothing to show for like what I was offering. So part of me was also just like, I want to document this for them, for me, for the clients and customers that I can serve and blah, blah, blah. So I ended up procrastinating the F out of it for like months. I finally learned what resistance felt like. And then when I launched it, it was all in this manic creation period. That's usually how I work, actually. It's like this slow, like hibernation, the roots are growing, but you don't see the bamboo kind of thing. And then it's like, bam. And so then whenever I actually launched it, I was like recording these videos at some point when I recorded one of the videos, we were visiting my husband in Groton, Connecticut, where they make submarines and stuff. And I had my laptop perched on a suitcase in the bathroom/closet. And I shared that like in the video. I'm like, I'm recording this perched on the suitcase or whatever. And I launched it all in like a span of 10 days. And again, this is results not typical. I had $50,000 first launch of my course. Like, again, roll your eyes. It's fine. The struggle was coming. I'll keep that open loop. But even that first launch, it was just wild and so cool.
And just so everyone knows, how much was the course when you launched it?
It was $1,000.
Okay. So you got 50 people to sign up the first time that you launched.
Yeah. I had 1,200 people on that interest list.
Zero spend on ads, right?
I think I might have played with ads and spent, I have no idea, like $100 or something, like, cause I didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, no, it wasn't ads. It was all that freaking momentum. It was a weird year, but it was exactly what it needed to be because it makes for a great story in retrospect. And at the time.
Yeah. So then what happened? So you launched, you have your first $50,000 launch. How many other times did you launch and what was the journey with that?
Okay. So the first time, as I was creating it, the first time I pre-sold it. So I had a document of like the stuff I was going to cover, but I was recording the videos and releasing 2 a week for 4 weeks, which was intense. And I don't recommend that to anyone. So I was recording them and the founding members were great and loved it. And then I was really triggered by triggering other people in that particular group. There were all these conversations about 6 figures, blah, 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 like rolling eyeballs and stuff. And I was like, it's hard not to feel like they're talking about me. Yeah. And so I had like shut like a little clam for a little while and eventually relaunched it later that summer. And then it was even bigger and better. But yeah, in that in between, it was weird. I did like a really successful affiliate promotion for another program. Had some personal shakeups of a chemical pregnancy early on, shortly after that launch. And so it was just, like a roller coaster, which is life. And so that summer I went laptopless, as I call it, #laptopless. And we went on like a family vacation in the Texas Hill Country. And I was like, I'm not taking my laptop. Which was such a big deal for me then. Now it's like, I barely want to take it anywhere or open it at all. But back in the day, that was such a big deal to me because I was like so in the zone of it has to be, I have to do a weekly email, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it was so fun to just get inspired by the lightning bugs and the little goats running around and just the slower, quieter pace of life. And so it was just me and my notebook doodling and mind mapping to recreate the lessons and re-record a super streamlined evergreen version of the course. And that's what I ended up doing. But even then I was like, I had all the information, but I wasn't inspired to like turn the lights on and start recording. So I was like, I like to create in a mutual inspiration society. Like I like to create with people. And my friend Amber McHugh had done her 5-day planathon. I was like, what if I did like a 5-ish week pop-up Facebook group? This wasn't a thing that I had seen other than Amber doing the 5-day thing. So that's how I ended up launching it that summer. I was like, let's do a Facebook group. And what are y'all's questions that you have? And then I actually created a whole nother side product out of that group experience because it was just pure inspiration and taking action from
wow.
that place. Yeah.
So, okay, I just want to make sure I've got this down. So you do the first launch, you make 50,000 of the course,
And
then
shut it.
you shut it, you wait a while. Was
Yeah,
the
it was
second
February
time
to then August.
was the second time that you launched it in August the time when you did the pop-up Facebook group?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you did the pop-up Facebook group,
I
you
called it
kind
summer school.
I
Yeah.
remember that was fantastic.
Yeah, it was so fun.
It was so cool. And so how much did you sell that time? Do you remember?
I know that it ended up, it was like 80 something thousand, because then whenever I closed it, so basically, and this, again, this is the power of just like getting into motion and taking inspired action, because I had that Facebook group and I said 5-ish weeks because I was like, I don't really know when I'm going to want to close it. And then as I was doing it, I was like, hey, what do y'all want to learn? And so then people gave me like all these ideas of things that they wanted to learn. So I decided to, again, just to practice and muscle memory, like take my camera recording and my lights out and blah, blah, blah. So I recorded 20 short videos on 5 themes of like clear writing, smart writing, fun writing. I forget what they all are, but it ended
Right.
up being 20 videos. And then I was closing the group and it was like, little zombie apocalypse, like people would disappear because I wasn't archiving it. That didn't even exist at the time. We literally just one by one removed the thousands of people. But they were like, no, I wanted to see the videos. I was like, well, what if I packaged them and called it a course about copy prep school? And that whenever you then you buy these videos, and then that $200 can apply if and when you want to upgrade to a course about copy. And that added another $20,000 in revenue.
Oh
Because
my
whatever that,
God.
yeah, yeah, right. Inspired action. What does that mean?
Wow.
100 people took me up on it.
So how much was it? $200?
Yeah, it was like $199.
Wow.
So that pushed it over, I think, the $100,000 mark for that whole
Wow. And I just
thing.
want to kind of remind everyone who's listening, and this is a reminder for myself too, is like so often just like tacking on another little extra offer, whether it's like an upsell or a downsell, or, okay, you didn't want to join the $1,000 program, but maybe you want to join this $200 one. I love
Yeah,
that.
it was not premeditated. It wasn't at all. And so like, if you're inspired to do it, then there's a reason why you're inspired to do it. And so many people were really thankful for that option. And it was fun and easy for me to create because I had already done the videos and I already had my course about copy site. So it's just a matter of duplicating that and then making it a different membership level so that people could see that.
So when was the last time that you launched a course about copy?
I did one live launch in 2018, none in 2016, and like 1 week none in 2017, and then like one summer launch in 2016. So I've not, like, it's been there. And it's, like I said, it's evergreen because it's not about algorithms. It's about timeless, like how to present information to people in a way that makes sense. And I'm super grateful to me for being extra with my video production because it looks great. It's fun. The branding is crisp and clean and
That's
super
awesome.
pro and quality. Like, it's there. It's just that I love to talk about a whole lot of other things. That's just one slice of the pie. So it's still there and it still serves, and it's not like it's outdated by any means.
Quick break in the show to read a review that one of you fantastic listeners left on my podcast over on iTunes. Here it is. Okay, it says, "This podcast is sensational. Each and every episode is filled with tips, advice, and encouragement that is invaluable for any business owner in any field, whether established or just starting out. Alex Beadon has an ability to connect with her audience on a level that gives so much joy and excitement and keeps you excited for upcoming episodes. No matter which episode I replay, I always hear something that applies to where I am or desire to be in my business and in my life. I am so grateful for the platform and community Alex has created through her commitment to her craft. Her authenticity and perseverance is awe-inspiring." Thank you so much. That's from Nikki Flutterby. I really appreciate it. She's from the United States of America. And I just want to encourage everyone listening, if you haven't already gone and left a podcast review, what you waiting for? Make it happen. Okay, guys, enjoy the rest of this episode. So I want to hear you talk about now the transition away from teaching copy and what that was like for you. So for me, I used to be a photographer, and I remember the first day that I didn't want to pick up my camera again. And I was like, this is weird. This must just be like a creative fluke, or, they say you have a dry spell.
Yeah.
And then a year had passed and I still felt the same way. And it's such a weird transition when you've been so good at something and when you're so known for something. it feels almost like you're betraying yourself to
Mm-hmm.
switch directions or decide I want to change lanes. So I would love for you to walk us through how you first started getting the inkling of maybe this isn't what I want to do anymore, and where that has led you to today.
Yeah, I would say my last big boomy, like super aligned and the results showed it, reflected that launch was literally like a few weeks before I gave birth to Deacon.
Mhm.
And so that was in December of 2015. And that was like my last 6-figure month. Since then, there are plenty more to come. But that was when things really shifted. Like there was the December 2015 where it was actually a beautiful example of, the saying that the universe treats you as well as you treat yourself. In
Mhm.
December 2015, my husband had been deployed for most of that year. Like all these things were going on, and momming and businessing with my preschooler at the time, pregnant and all of that jazz. And then in December, I thought I was going to go into labor pretty early because I did with Bryson, like at 37 weeks. So I was like, we'll do one more webinar and then we'll be done. And it's time to get into, so I was like getting my hair done, getting my nails done, walking a couple miles a day. I was trying to do everything to get Deaky out. So I couldn't be effed with any other like non-essential business activities. The only things I was doing were like profit generating activities for the most part. And I think
Right.
even like my websites both went down for a week or maybe 2. And I was just like, really guys, I'm just trying to like get this labor started. So it was like, I was taking such great care of my body and only focusing on essential activities. And it was probably one of my most profitable months ever between this, of course, about copy webinar where like 40 something people joined in 3 days. And
Wow.
I was like, super pregnant, bouncing on my birth ball while I was leading the webinar, and then an affiliate promotion for another program. And they were both so fun. And so it like came so naturally. So that's just a shout out to like really taking care of yourself and focusing on what do you really need to be doing.
Yeah.
So that was like a big thing. But then a few weeks later, so then I had Deacon. And then a few weeks later, I had this watershed literally moment where we were at Aulani, which is the Disney resort on the west side of Oahu, one of our favorite places on earth. And it was me and my parents and Bryson and Deacon and my husband. And we were talking about how we were going to Disney World later that year. We just got back from Disney actually this week from another trip. And I was thinking about how Bryson was going to be 5, even though he had just turned 4. Like 2 months before that, he had just turned 4. But I was doing the math and realizing he's going to be 5 by the time we go for Thanksgiving. And I burst into tears. So part of it was hormones and postpartum and all of that. And the other part was like, wait a second, that means he's going to be starting kindergarten pretty soon. And I have spent so much of his life with my head in my laptop, like just one more email. Oh, hang on, buddy. Yeah, hang on. Like halfway, like letting Netflix and Cheerios take care of it. And at that moment, so I want to say that I have completely healed and developed full, genuine appreciation for that version of me. But at the time, I felt crushed by mom guilt. I was like, oh my gosh, I do not want to live that way. That's not how I want to be showing up for them while they're young and still in our home and still in our space. And that's when everything started to shift and crack like a little earthquake, beneath my feet. And so I was like, okay, well, at least Bryson had 18 months before I started my business. Deaky was practically born on a live webinar, as discussed. So I was like, what am I going to do? What does this look like? And it spun me the F out. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I want to do? And so I actually had 2, like a chemical pregnancy and then an actual like 7.5-week miscarriage in 2014. And during one of those pregnancies, I don't remember which, the idea, this name just dropped into my brain of Naptime Empires. And so I was like, okay, let's see what this is going to be. Let's see if this is going to be a conversation or a book, like a podcast, a course. I don't know what the course would be because there's no one right way to do it, but like, let's just explore it. So I started to put that idea and just kind of play with that in various forms. And I even, like the day I created a landing page to tell people about it, within 2 days, hundreds of people, moms or moms to be, who have businesses, had responded to share so much of their stories. It was a lengthy type form that I created, but it was like long. They were telling me their life story, and I so appreciate the trust that they put in me to share these things. But I was like, let's just start this conversation on the realities of parenthood and entrepreneurship and raising kiddos while building our businesses and all that comes along with that. And so that was in 2016. I did do that, of course, about copy promotion that summer, but my heart wasn't in it. And the results were okay, but they weren't what I was used to getting, even though I was going through all the motions. And I was like, I think this is the universe clipping my credit cards to be like redirecting. And so later that year, I started recording Naptime Empires, and then I launched it in January of 2017. And this has been the Naptime Empire season of just exploring how do I want to show up.
And just
And
so everyone knows, that's the name of her podcast.
Yes. And it's been super sporadic. Like I was really consistent with it for the first few months. And then over the years, it's just been my place. I feel like I haven't, like I was telling you before we started, I haven't even been doing, I can't remember the last time I did a podcast interview, someone else's podcast. And even on my own podcast, it's just been a place where I've been anchoring in lessons over the last few years. But yeah, it's been a journey because I was feeling so mom guilt about that. And then, like I said, now I'm so thankful the perspective and the work that I've been doing on myself for the last couple of years. I'm like, I'm so thankful for the hustle mode, one more email, because of her and the work that she did and the money that we saved. My husband's able to be home every freaking day. Benefits and drawbacks to that too. Like he's here. So like when Bryson's like, oh, you're working. I'm like, you're welcome. Did you enjoy seeing daddy today? That's great. Did you enjoy doing this? You're welcome. 100%. You are welcome, buddy. Like I can see that. I don't feel the guilt. I feel so much gratitude for exactly as this has unfolded. But yeah, there was guilt about not working or working too much. And then the flip side was the guilt about not working enough and untangling my identity from business success. It's been a journey. Yeah.
I remember when we got together in Hawaii for the mastermind, you just shared like you were just in a space of not knowing. And that's such a difficult place to be in. I remember for me personally, when I was in that space, it was kind of like I just had to accept that I was in a place of not knowing and be comfortable with not needing to know and understanding that you can't force a flower to bloom.
Yep.
And that there's lessons that are happening in that phase of not knowing, even though it's annoying because you're like, I really wish I could just figure this out. And I want to just be able to like take this off my to-do list.
Yeah. It's like, I was booking readings and healings and like off the wazoo of like, can somebody just show me the answer key? Like, can I just take like one peek to see where this is ending up? Because I had a very clear path and now I'm not really so sure about it. So that's what I'm talking about with the squiggle. Like I created my own squiggle. Plus we moved our entire family we lived in Hawaii for a decade and then we moved here and my husband was gone 80% of the time and now he's home 95% of the time. Like huge transitions, life turned upside down and inside out. So like life needed my attention in this time. And when I zoom out and I'm like, hopefully a happy, healthy 95-year-old or whatever, when I look back at these years, I'm going to be like, of course, business took the back seat because life needed your attention. And then also I just see at this point, literally in this moment of time, feeling clearer than I have in a long time. It's like, I went through all of that so that I could serve other people. Like I wanted to run away from the internet. I was like, no, I don't want to do any of this stuff. Like people would talk about business and it was like gears turning or nails on a chalkboard. I'm like, I don't even want to talk about it or think about it. And then I went through that so that I can help other people through it too, like to offer my hand out and be like, I mean, you can totally go the hard way if you want to, or you can take this shortcut. And I'm like sharing my field notes, like take this and pass it back. Yeah. And that's what I'm most inspired to do right now.
So you mentioned something earlier. You spoke about the concept of inspired action.
Yep.
I would love to hear you speak more about that, about what that means for you, what that looks like. How do you know when you're taking inspired action or when you're just like forcing something?
Yeah. So it's a cool story about, I'm like, do we have 2 hours? How much time do we have, Alex? But like, so this time last year-ish, I came across the work of this guy named John DeMartini. And lots of divine breadcrumbs all around how I originally heard about him through our friend Jen Kim. And then I like went down the rabbit hole of his work and stuff. And one of the core tenets of what he talks about is values, and not like freedom and justice for all, love, whatever. It's like, no, values as in like, how do you actually spend your time? How do you spend your money? What do you talk about? Like, how do you fill your space? So he has a values assessment on his website. It's drdemartini.com. And so what I learned from him with the hierarchy of values that we all have is like when we're operating in our highest values, we're naturally inspired, disciplined, organized, and focused because it's the stuff we care about. It's the stuff nobody has to remind you to do. You're going to do it no matter what. And then in our lowest values, if you can imagine like a little ladder, the stuff that we don't really value currently at this moment, that's the stuff where we're like dragging our feet, procrastinating, foggy, and unfocused on. And we're shooting all over ourselves to think like, I really should do this. I want to do this, but like your actions aren't actually backing it up because you don't actually genuinely care about it. And that's okay. Because we can only care about so much at one time anyway. So when you can actually embrace that, like any given day, what you're actually doing, there is, whether it's conscious or unconscious, that's what you and yourself actually thinks is the most important right now. So if you can stop
Mm-hmm.
beating yourself up over it, and either surrender to it or find a way to link it to be something that you care about and like why you actually care to do it. Like it is just less resistance basically when you know that
Mm-hmm.
this is what I care about. If it's going to benefit my family, if it's going to benefit my creativity and my expression, like I would say right now, family, personal development, and wealth building have been priorities for me. But we've saved so much that like the wealth building, I didn't need the business income. Like we still had magically, we've been staying afloat and our net worth has stayed just about the same, even though I haven't been prioritizing actual income.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if I didn't need it, then it makes sense that I wasn't prioritizing business because all of my top values were met without
That's
that.
incredible that you've been able to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild because we spend a lot, but thanks to like investments and stuff. And so it's shifting. Now I care. Like now I have linked caring about serving more people because it didn't feel like me either to not be serving and sharing all the lessons that I've learned. I've learned so much over
Yeah.
the last few years. And now I'm caring again to be like, okay, I'm ready to share it. But I don't want my lifestyle to shift too much. That's why I'm going to be working like super high level one-on-one stuff for a while. Cause I don't want to dive back in and then be super busy with all of these different moving parts and pieces. I still want to keep it as simple as possible because I am really grateful for how my life is right now.
Yeah. So I'd love for you to share with us what your offerings look like now and how you were able to like basically piece those together after such a period of like confusion and frustration and all of that jazz. Like where did the light bulb moment come from?
I don't know if I would even call it a light bulb rather than like, even so, again, A Course About Copy has been there. So it's been the little engine that could, and people have been seeking it out and all of these things. And every day someone new is discovering me on somebody else's podcast or whatever. So it's been there kind of running in the background. But then I've also throughout the last few years or 2 years since 2017, I've offered group experiments. Like I called them mastermindy experiences. So like I did what I called the trimester of awesome in 2017, right when I was launching the podcast. And it was so fun. I sent one email to my list on the last day, but it filled within 5 days just from my Facebook group. I put a document in there and shared what it was going to be. And then like 14 people signed up and I was like, boop, closed, we're done.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was like my favorite thing ever that I ever offered because it was literally like we picked different areas of life. Cause it's like, if you're anything like me, and I bet you are, because that's how this works,
Yeah.
that you feel like you used to be a well-rounded person, but now you're more like a well-sharpened pencil, and like your relationships are suffering or your health is and your energy is suffering. Like your business feels harder than it needs to. And so I just wanted to help people like get their sparks back, and get their life back, like a holistic sense of success, not just this is what it looks like. Online marketing, do this, scale this, Facebook ads, blah, 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 and like I sucked all
Yeah.
the fun out of my business. So I want to help other people avoid that if they can and
Mm-hmm.
learn, again, get the cheat sheet from me, like been there, done that. So it's so fun. And then I offered a few different iterations of like live co-working groups, a mini mester where it was like every Wednesday we would get on the call and just do straight up co-working,
Yeah.
different themes for costume days, optional and all of that. And then last year I offered something called Homeroom for 9 months. And it was literally just a small group. We had a Facebook group. And then every other week we would hop on a call on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central and just hold space for each other to show up and be there. And even if they hadn't done anything else, that was a time that they set aside for them. So the culmination of all of those things, like I said, what I would like to be offering moving forward is going to be working with just a handful of one-on-one clients at a super high level of these women that are serving hundreds of thousands of people. And they have the 7 and 8 figure business. They also have the partner at home and the kids at home. And they're like everybody's everything. And they need a space to just be. And so they have huge output. And that requires huge input or it's imbalance. It's an equation. It's like it needs to be solved and they need a clean container where they can just show up and be. And this is different too than friendship. Because part of me struggled with, and I offered one-on-ones kind of in between here and there, but I was like, I feel like sometimes people are just paying me to be their friend because this is what I do with my friends, So what's the difference? And the aha moment that I had is like, it's a clean container because there's fair exchange here because you've paid me. You don't have to check in on me. You don't have to hold any space for me. You have done your part of the transaction by paying me to be able to hold this space for you. So they need to have enough skin in the game to where they'll actually use me, like show up and reach out to me when they need something. It's the ultimate, like check on your strong friend. Like that's who I want to serve because they're making a difference. They're serving. And we do want them to be able to lead for the long haul and not burn out and want to run away from the internet like I did. So
Yeah. I love what you said about people who have such huge outputs, they also need to have big inputs.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people don't think about that. And I know even for me, like I need to give myself that space. I'm not even at such a high level, but I do feel very much so that there's so many people relying on me for things, and I need to like hold the vision in order to like move this train forward. And it is so important to give yourself that space and that breathing room to kind of let the magic happen. What does that look like if someone's listening to this and they're like, I really want to be able to create that for myself? What are some hints, tips, tricks that you can give of how someone can try to give themselves that space?
Well, what I've been dreaming up on my whiteboard over here, it's like analog Google slides. I love to doodle. So I've just been dreaming up, and then I take a picture and then I move on and erase it and then take a picture. And what I'm imagining working with people on is like starting off with the current X marks the spot if you're at a mall and it's like, you are here and there's the little star. It's like, let's take inventory of where you are at the moment in all the areas of life. So your body, your mind, your spirit, your romantic relationships, your family, if you have kiddos, your health, your physical health, your finances, and all of these pieces. And like quantitatively and qualitatively, how would you rate how you're feeling in those areas from a scale of like 1 to 10? And then qualitatively, if you'll just take a time to even just a short paragraph, but like, here's what's going on. And it's just a snapshot. And I think it's great also just for growth mindset to have a baseline of what you can look forward to 3 months from now or 3 years from now and be like, oh yeah, I forgot when that was like my biggest challenge at the moment or whatever. And so taking the baseline, I also recommend going to DeMartini's website and taking that honest assessment of your values so you can stop beating yourself up over not actually giving enough about the things that aren't at the top of the values, or shifting it if you want to shift it. For example, so many people say financial freedom and wealth building is so important to them, but it's not anywhere even near the top 3 because they're spending all their money rather than thinking about saving ever growing amounts and all of that stuff. So he's got lots of interesting stuff on the finance piece too. But taking the honest assessment of where you are now, looking at your values to see what is your life reflecting, like actual evidence of what you actually genuinely from your heart care about right now. And then I love a good future self meditation to check in with her or him, that person, that future you, to be like, hey, like where, and you just let your intuition kind of paint that picture for you of where you want to be. And then you make the plan to kind of move backwards. And the point is really all along the way is being grateful for exactly where you are right now. Because so many of us have the future, whatever it is, that's this fantasy on a pedestal of like, when this is happening, everything's going to be roses. And that means that that's on a pedestal. Again, this is DeMartini language. If that's on a pedestal, this fantasy of when I have $1 million business, when I have this number of clients, when I have this relationship, everything's going to be great. And that makes this current reality a nightmare. So it's no wonder that you're feeling down and depressed and like, oh, this sucks. I can't wait till there. And you're wishing your whole life away. But when you can genuinely look at where you are now and find the benefit to exactly where you are now, then I say it's like you're defogging your emotional windshield, and then you're free to move about the cabin from an empowered place rather than like, I hate this space that I'm in. I'm trying to escape it, because you'll keep recreating until you can actually genuinely appreciate it. And that's the whole idea of like detaching from the outcome and stuff. It's like, if you can see how and why you've created this exact situation, then you're actually empowered to shift and change it when you want to.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you were saying before about how you had so much mom guilt, but now you can look back and be like, thank God for that version of myself, because she ultimately created what I now get to enjoy and the space that I get to explore my next chapter.
Yeah, I was only seeing the drawbacks. I wasn't looking at the benefits.
Yeah.
I was only seeing how like what I perceived at the time to be negative things. I was only looking at the drawbacks. When I saw the benefits, I was like, oh, that's great. I'm glad she did that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I can decide to move forward however I want to now with whatever my ideal mix is, which is perfect, because it's like, if I value family and personal development and wealth building, I've set up a dream business for myself because I'm helping moms who have businesses making money with their personal development. And so I've linked it and created a life and a mission and my purpose to fill all of those boxes simultaneously. And that's the goal to me. So that's the inspired action, because it's like, I'm living it, and just me living my actual life or having this conflict with my child or with my husband or whatever is content ideas. It's going to help me help someone else through it, and I will get paid for that. And that is a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
I love it. Okay, my love, let's jump into the wrap-up questions. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. What is one thing you do that has been a non-negotiable in the success of your business?
Staying connected with my friends.
Share a mindset shift that has made the biggest difference in your life as an entrepreneur.
Life has two sides. So if you're expecting it to be one-sided, you're just not seeing the other side of it. And then you can really appreciate it as is when you realize there's going to be both sides to every freaking thing. It's maddening, but true.
Fill in the blank. The world would be a better place if more people knew.
We're all needed.
The book that changed my life was?
I'll go with The Values Factor. It's a DeMartini book. It kind of explains the overview of his work.
Nice. And lastly, I would love for you to challenge our listeners to do something this week, to take an action step or to focus on something. What would you like to challenge our listeners to do?
I'll circle it back to what we first started talking about, which is about being the friend that you wish to see in the DMs or the Voxer feed or whatever. So reach out and encourage someone or just let them know what you appreciate and then see where that goes.
Amazing. Nikki, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is so fun. Like I said, I haven't done an interview in so long. So I'm going to be pointing lots of people to be like, here, catch up on Alex's podcast and we're all good here.
I love it. And just listening to your story, it's just full of so many gems. And I know that everyone who's listened is going to be able to take those and apply them in their own unique way. So I just want to say thank you so much. We all love you. And I'm so excited for this next chapter.
Love you. Thank you so much.
If you've reached this far in the episode, that must mean that you loved what you just heard, and I want to say thank you for listening. I also want to prompt you to take a simple action step that would really make my day and really help support what I do here on the show. I would deeply appreciate it if you could take 2 minutes of your time to leave us a review. To do it, it's super simple. You're just going to open the podcast app on your phone, search for On Purpose with Alex Beadon, scroll down until you see the ratings and reviews section, and then tap the Write a Review button. Your reviews are what help support this show. So please, if you are enjoying this content, take the 60 seconds that it will take and go and write a review. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I want you to know how much I appreciate your attention. I want to thank you for listening, and I can't wait for you to listen